today was the deadline to lodge an application for judicial review against Attieh Fard Council in respect of its decision to sell Deepcut car park. Of course, we didn't lodge the application because of costs, albeit that we had advice from barristers that the council's decision was unlawful, and I'll tell you why it was unlawful. I will also give you a summary of what actually happened and some of the misinformation relied upon by councillors at the full council meeting. So initially, we saw as residents a Facebook post on 14th of February this year that the council was selling Deepcut car park. A petition was created and shared by a colleague of mine, a Conservative colleague, and I shared it as well. But as I thought that my previous petition in respect of the car park charges by Attieh Fard Council were not really effective in terms of the council changing its decision, I decided to go down the legal route. So I started corresponding with the council, arguing that actually the marketing of the asset was unlawful because they needed an executive decision, even just to market the land. They didn't accept that point. I got opinion from barristers confirming the same thing. I had confirmation in writing, I had verbal confirmation. Again, the council didn't accept that. The matter then went to the executive to decide whether the asset should be sold, and if it should be sold, which of the offers should be accepted. That executive decision was held on 20th of May this year, and I went there, I asked some questions at that meeting. At the meeting, unfortunately, it was decided that Deepcut car park at Wooden Road would be sold. The councillors, various councillors, Liberal Democrats, referred to St Barbara's car park as a new car park, to Deepcut car park being underused, all of which was, in fact, not factual. I provided evidence to the council that Deepcut car park at Wooden Road was actually heavily used. In fact, one of the council's own car parking strategy documents mentioned that. I also provided evidence that St Barbara's car park was used previously by the residents, so it was not a new car park. In any case, the council decided that it should be sold, and one of the, I think, wrong decisions they made was that they accepted an offer which was unconditional, and we don't know what the level of that offer was. All I've heard is probably it's more than $500,000. But there was another offer. There was another unconditional offer by Deepcut Garage, which would have kept Deepcut car park as a car park for the community and for their business. My understanding is that the offer was around £450,000, that the residents could have used the car park during the day, in the evenings, over the weekend. They had to pay during the day because the business had to operate and use the car park, but in the evenings and over the weekend would have been free of charge to the residents. Unfortunately, that offer was turned down, even though it was almost twice the amount of the Red Book value of Deepcut car park. So we decided to challenge the decision further. I'm so grateful to councillors Johnny Cope and Josh Thorne who called in that decision. Now, calling in decision is not doesn't happen regularly, and it's a process where the Performance and Security Committee of Attieh Fard Council would scrutinise the council's decision, the executive's decision. I was invited to attend that meeting as a witness, and so was another councillor representing Mitchell and Deepcut, and we had other people giving evidence as well. That meeting was very interesting. It was painful to be there, to be honest, but it was interesting. I was asked a question by one of the councillors, Councillor Whitcroft, how many people had signed the petition and wanted Deepcut car park to be protected, because we were also petitioning for Holly Hedge open space not to be sold and other community assets. And I replied that I hadn't calculated how many, but there were an overwhelming number of people had supported saving Deepcut car park from sale, and that I had provided the evidence to the council anyway, and the council could have shared it with all the councillors. In fact, I sent it to Democratic Services and asked them to share it with all the councillors present that night, including all the responses to the petition. Anyway, councillors at that meeting, rather than scrutinising the executive's decision, started to scrutinise the intentions of Deepcut Garage and their offer. And they said, well, Deepcut Garage was not offering to keep it as a car park in perpetuity. That's an interesting point, because the owner later on told me, well, nobody asked him to do that. If he had known that was a condition, he would have improved his offer. But it was too late at that stage, because another offer was already accepted and he's turned down. I was also scrutinized as well in terms of how many petitions I had created and I had shared. I think at one stage, one of the councillors indicated that I had created the Conservatives petition initially, and I couldn't remember, to be honest, because it was right at the beginning of the process, and then I tried not to engage with petitions. Anyway, none of the councillors, especially Liberal Democrats, engaged with the evidence that I submitted to the council, including overwhelming evidence, pictures, photographs, comments by residents, proving St Barbara's car park was used previously as a car park, and that the Deepcut car park at Woodend Road was heavily used by the residents. It was not underused. It was interesting that at the executive meeting, we even had one of the Deepcut councillors saying that he was using the Woodend Road car park, and two of the Lib Dem councillors representing Deepcut were also not so much in favour of fast sale, albeit I'm not sure whether that was just verbal or in writing behind the doors as well. In any case, the scrutiny committee also decided that they wouldn't change the executive's decision. They just raised some points about how Surrey County Council is now going to manage traffic outside the school now that Woodend Road car park is not going to be used. I had also raised it with the council that they should have, as part of their decision-making process, they should have considered the protected characteristic of people using Woodend Road car park, including, for example, the faith of people, disabilities. So, for example, the rights of the members of St Barbara's Church to have access to the car park, or disabled people who now have to park at St Barbara's car park and then walk up the hill to access the businesses which are up the hill closer to Woodend Road car park. So we couldn't achieve much at that stage, and therefore the matter went to the full council. Now, at the full council, several comments were made by Liberal Democrat councillors which were false. I don't want to say anyone lied. Probably they couldn't remember the facts. Or maybe they remembered, but they wanted to represent it in a different way. I don't know why they said what they said. And I'll just give you 3 examples. One was one of the councillors representing Deepcut and Mitchell, who said that he asked the question of how many people had signed my petition in favour of saving Deepcut car park, and the answer was none. That was not correct. If you look at the video at the end of this clip, you will see that I actually said I hadn't calculated how many, but there were a number of people who had signed it in favour of Deepcut and a number in favour of Holly Hedge open space, and in any case there was overwhelming evidence that residents were against sale of Deepcut car park. The second false statement was made by, unfortunately, Councillor Ashbury, whom I respect. But he said, well, only about 300 people had signed the petition. No, at that stage, by full council's meeting, about 800 people had signed the petition. I had already shared data with the council, and therefore that was wrong as well. And it was interesting that even the leader of the council couldn't remember what he said at the executive meeting, where he said that there are some community assets that they would like to protect, and certain assets that the community is currently using would remain in the hands of the community. For example, the allotments, he referred, I think, to Windlesham Parish or to parish councils, and and I referred to that at that meeting, and I asked him, well, you've said this, but it didn't happen in the case of Deepcut car park. The car park that was used by the community was now being sold for more homes, and what guarantees would they offer to ensure that future community assets would remain in the hands of the community? And he couldn't just remember what he has said at the executive meeting. Perhaps his understanding of what he has said was different. So in any case, the full council meeting was also a painful to kind of like process, in terms of being there, in terms of putting the questions to the council, in terms of their engagement with the issue, their comments, and all of that. And I had to consider afterwards whether, again, you know, an application for judicial review had merits, or whether we should proceed with it. And we decided, perhaps, I thought that best maybe not to, because of the issue of costs. I remember I had done an article years ago when I was studying on challenging local authorities, and even then in my article I had raised how difficult it is under the current laws to challenge local authorities, and obviously the cost consequences is a burden. Throughout the process, though, it was lovely to be in touch with residents, with other councillors who supported our request. Obviously, Councillor Johnny Cope at the full council meeting asked the Liberal Democrat administration to have consultation with the residents when they want to sell a piece of land, and obtain the feedback. Unfortunately, and overwhelmingly, all the Liberal Democrats voted against it. So the same people who prior to last borough elections promised engagement with the community, transparency, accountability, were proud that they after the election that they reduced the threshold of petition to 250. The same people voted against that request. And it was interesting that all the other councillors, not just only the Conservatives, Labour councillors, independent councillors, voted in favour of having consultation with the residents. But anyway, that was turned down as well. And one of the painful realities of that is that now that the open space, which is like a green space at Greenbank Way in Fremley, is being sold, the council obviously didn't consult with the residents when they placed it on the market. And it was interesting that some of the councillors went to the area, delivered letters asking people for their views, so running some sort of consultation with the residents about installation of a playground in close proximity to the land that is being sold. So it shows that if councillors want to engage with the residents, they can. If they want to run consultations, they can. It's just that there is no political will regarding sale of community assets. Now, a number of assets are being sold. So Deepcut car park is being sold. Yorktown car park is being sold. Another car park I heard is being sold. The land at Greenbank Way is being sold. And to be honest, I don't see any way we can stop the council. I don't think this administration will listen and change course. I hope they do. I hope they do, but I don't think they will. Finally, I just wanted to say a huge thanks to all the residents and councillors who supported us. Once again, thank you for listening, and also the officers at Sarhid Borough Council. I understand that you want to do the best for the community. That's what you think is the best. It's just not what we think is the best for our community, where we live and where we work. Do stay in touch with me. There is still time to sign the petition to save the open space at Green Bank, where you can help the residents. Anyone who lives in Surrey Heath can sign that petition. Obviously, people who live in the vicinity and are impacted by it, I encourage them to take part if they really don't want it to be sold. And let's hope for a brighter future. The Unitary Authority elections are just under a year ahead of us, so they're going to be held in May next year, May 2026, and Sarhid Borough Council will be non-existent in less than 2 years. So a lot of work needs to be done, and that was why we wanted to protect community assets until the Unitary Authorities come into power. We will talk about finances separately, but let's for now just focus on the state of our assets, and let's say a huge thanks to everyone who is working hard for our communities.
Because there's been some confusion about the petitions. I'm assuming that the one we're discussing is the one with about 800 signatures. Is that correct?
I believe that's the one she said earlier.
I wonder, because that petition, as I understand it, from some material which I've seen, referred also to the 2 other sites which somebody mentioned a few minutes ago, including the Holly Hedge site. So there were people who were responding to that petition who were specifically concerned about the 2 other sites. Would you happen to know how many of the people signing that petition were concerned specifically about the Deepcut site?
I can have a look at the outcome. Obviously, it's 850 residents, and some of them have made comments on it and have said which of those assets are close to their hearts. So I've seen that. I've sent the detailed outcome to the Democratic Services, and you also have got their responses as well. So that was, I mean, other councillors have it definitely. They had it yesterday, I believe. So it does mention, it does show their comments, and some of them have mentioned Deepcut, some of them have mentioned Holly Hedge Road, but I think there is an overwhelming evidence that Deepcut residents were unhappy about the sale.
Specifically dealt with the Deepcut site, and answer there was none.